this is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. If you're coming to Lisbon, this is, do not miss. Like straight up, do not miss this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the beautiful city of Lisbon here in Portugal. We are in the town of Lisboa, that's how it's pronounced in Portuguese. And today I'm going to be giving you guys a sort of travel guide, not an everything you need to know travel guide, but a sort of fun little travel guide about Lisbon and the town of Sintra, which is right outside of Lisbon. Two very popular destinations for tourists in Western Europe. This video is also graciously and wonderfully sponsored by Hostelworld. Hostelworld is your best app and website to book a hostel anywhere around the world, but I'll tell you guys a little bit more about the hostel and Hostelworld a little bit later. For anything else, let's roll the intro. To open up this video, I want to let you guys know that this has to be one of the most Instagrammable and picturesque cities I've ever been to in my entire life. I'm here during the month of August and it is crowded with people. I mean, there are people everywhere at all points at every second of the day. Right behind me is actually the funicular, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this video. Is a famous tourist thing to do. You see right down the street that's full of graffiti, and you can tell this crowded with people, and people are actually still getting on it right now. That being said, let's jump into a bunch of little locations that you guys need to check out when you're here in Lisbon, because there's tons to check out. So first of all, we'll talk about some of the locations that I visited here in Lisbon. We'll talk about some stuff that was right outside of the city and some stuff that was within the city itself. These are some of the greatest viewpoints that you're going to see in the city, and just overall great places to come and see a fantastic views overlooking viewpoints, vistas of Lisbon. For real, if you're coming to a city with the desire to take the most Instagrammable pictures possible, Lisbon is second to none when it comes to that. Literally every street that you turn, every corner that you take in the city, every restaurant you visit is going to be filled with opportunities to take cool pictures that will impress all of your friends. So first place that you're going to want to head to, and I highly recommend you try to make it out there, is to the Cristo Rei. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Christ the Redeemer of Lisbon. This one was inspired by the one in Brazil, and it is absolutely incredible. I'm a Jew, but I can still appreciate the architecture and work that went through this thing. It is incredible. It is so big, just having a big old Jesus looking over the entire city of Lisbon. The only issue I can see you coming through is the fact that it's not exactly in Lisbon itself. It's right outside Lisbon, but you do get this awesome view of this giant Christ, as well as the entire city and a bridge that was built to look sort of like the Bay Bridge in the United States of America, but painted like the Golden Gate Bridge, designed by the same guy who designed the Bay Bridge. Super cool. And I learned all this stuff by going on a tour. The Independent hostel that I'm staying at right now, this is the hostel that Hostelworld kind of set us up in. They actually have tours, and they took us on a tour, so I'll leave some information for you guys if you want to check out the tours down below. Super cool stuff. They do tours to all these different viewpoints, including going on tours to Sintra, which I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. All right, next sort of viewpoint, and we did this on the tour that I want to recommend, is called the Panoramica de Monsanto. This is located in the Monsanto Park that we actually learned is the largest park in Portugal, and I think one of the largest parks in Europe. It's a giant forest kind of on the side of the city, and it has this restaurant, this old abandoned restaurant that is now this sort of graffiti art, amazing place to get a viewpoint of Lisbon. You can go up to the top of this thing and it has this sort of 360 rotunda where you can get this incredible view of the entire city. So I highly recommend heading to this place. I love abandoned buildings, especially since abandoned buildings tend to get so filled up. Amazing art and graffiti, so I highly recommend checking out the Panoramica de Monsanto. It is something to not be missed. All right, let's jump off to the neighborhood of Belém. Yeah, this thing is spelled differently than actually it sounds, but we learned that in Portuguese, this word is spelled differently and it's kind of pronounced with a nasally sound, so you kind of say Belém. You can even hold your nose to get the right sound. This kind of sounds like Belém. The neighborhood of Belém is super historic and old, but it's also famous for a few things. For one, you have the Tower of Belém there. It's very popular tourist attraction. There's going to be lots of tourists there. This thing is an old tower. It was used as a watchtower back in the day to protect the city. It is now sort of sitting there in this mix of modernism. So there's tons of modern buildings all around, and then it kind of reaches beachfront and it's just kind of sitting there. Personally, I think it is amazing. It is such an incredible looking building, and you can actually go to the top of it. As well, if you're already in Belém, you gotta go to the most famous thing in the city, pretty much the most famous thing in Belém in general, and that is Pastel de Belém. The people who originated the most famous pastry in all of Portugal, the pastel de nata. Pastel de nata is a sort of egg yolk creamy custard thing that has become the most famous pastry in all of Portugal. It is kind of like the signature dish of Portugal now. We've been having them every single day, and the pastel de nata is an amazing little deliciousness of yumminess. Now, we tried pastel de nata in a few other places, but the pastel de blé, the guys who originated this place, supposedly originated it, do it better than anybody else, and that is a guarantee. Is it worth a trek out? It's a little bit far out from the town, it's a little bit far out from the touristy sites, but if you're already gonna head out to Blé, I highly suggest. You're gonna have to wait in line, but don't worry, the line moves a little bit fast. It's not, you won't have to wait probably more than like 20 or 30 minutes max to get one of these. They're cheap, they're only like €1 something to get some, and they are freaking delicious, especially when you get them warm out of the oven. So there's a few different means of transportation in the city that I'm going to tell you guys about in a second, but the funicular has become sort of a touristy way to get around a little bit. It's expensive, it's not really a reasonable way to do it. We actually didn't use it, but I do want to tell you guys about it. So like I mentioned, Lisbon is very hilly, lots of hills going up and down. So there's these specific roads in some parts of the city that will take you down on this sort of cable car system, but it's not a real true cable car because you don't really suspend up in the air. You kind of stay on a track going down a hill. What we did was just walk down the track itself and take pictures and videos of the awesome art that was there. Taking a ride on the thing itself is a very touristy thing to do. I don't really think it's practically used by a lot of people anymore because one, it barely holds any people. There's just full of tourists and there's not a lot of people that can fit in there in the first place, and it's kind of expensive. It's like €380 just to take a ride on it, and the ride only lasts like 5 minutes, maybe even less than that. It literally only takes you down one street. So keep in mind, it's a touristy thing to do, but if you gotta hit up that Instagram hotspot, sister, I don't even blame you. Go do your thing. Go take your picture. It's something that I gotta mention because it's a famous thing to do. Let's obviously talk about food here in Lisbon. Food in Lisbon is a huge part of coming to Portugal, to Lisbon in general. Portuguese food in Lisbon is very different than any other country I've been to. If you're coming from Spain, or if you've just recently visited Spain just like I have, know that the food culture here is almost completely the opposite. Where in Spain you eat tapas throughout the day, or pinchos, little small things throughout the day. Here in Lisbon, it's more about bigger food. Bigger is better here in Lisbon and in Portugal in general. Food portions are massive here, way bigger than Spain. So expect to be paying a little bit more, but also getting a lot more food. But before you watch this segment, keep in mind I actually made an entire budget food guide on Lisbon, so please watch that. I actually put a lot of work into it, and I'm very proud of how it came out, so make sure that you check that out. It'll be down below in the description, linked up on screen somewhere right now, or just on my channel. Please watch that. They do like a starter, main course, and a dessert, and a coffee after. That's sort of how it goes. It's typically a little more expensive. You're not going to have little €3, €4, €5 meals. It's going to be in the range of like €7 to €10, maybe €15. But you will be full, so you're not going to have to eat frequently throughout the day. Look for a thing called Prato del Dia or the mini pratos. Prato del Dia are kind of like the dishes of the day, and if you get the mini pratos, those are half portions of those, and you can get a cheaper half portion, which the portion is still very big, of the food of the day. We opted to have some delicious pork, veal, and steak, and it was incredible and super cheap at some local spots. Pastries are huge here. Once again, the pastel de nata is something that you gotta try, and bacalhau. Bacalhau is codfish. It is one of the most famous dishes here in Portugal and in Lisbon in general. In addition, I want to talk about the transportation around Lisbon, how you can actually get around this town, in and around into different areas. Take the tram. The tram is going to be a little less touristy and used by more locals, but once again, kind of touristy as well. We hopped on in there, it was packed, filled with people. And the tram has different routes. It is actually a normal means of transportation with different routes all around this. You'll always see the tram train tracks kind of around the city layered out there. I don't even fully understand how traffic works here because it's inlaid with traffic with cars, so the tram is kind of driving in between cars. It's really confusing. Taking a tuk-tuk. Yes, there is actually tuk-tuks in Lisbon for some odd reason. I don't really know the reason for it, but they are all over the place. They're definitely a more touristy thing to do, and they're going to be more expensive, but it is a way to get around, especially for tourists, and they are everywhere. There are no shortage of tuk-tuks, so you'll definitely find one if you want to find one. There are train stations, a few train stations in Lisbon. I think there's two that are main, one that will get you in and out of the city, and one of them that will get you in and out of Sintra. Keep in mind that those are two different stations. If you're trying to go to Sintra, which we're going to talk about in a minute, there are trains pretty much leaving every 10 minutes from this train station that's really close to here, to the Independent Hostel. As well, there's a bigger train station that will get you in and out of here, whether you're coming from Spain or if you're coming from different parts of the city and country. As well, buses are heavily used here in the city to get around, including a subway. They actually have a really nice, short and easy subway to understand. There's only like 4 or 5 lines, Very, very easy to understand. I'll get you across. It is nice and safe and quiet. And then you have the more touristy ways to get around that we've already touched on, your tram, your funicular, and the tuk-tuks. You can use these actual means to get around. And if you want to use an Uber ride, we've been using them. It's actually really, really cheap. There is no better way to get around, I think, than walking around, but you can use the alternative bikes and Lime scooters, those electric scooters. They're pretty much Limes and Bird scooters and different types of other scooters all around the city, so use those as well. Use them with caution. It is really hard to get around with them because there's lots of cobblestone roads and hills, so just use them as your precaution. I don't highly suggest, if you've never ridden a scooter, to ride one of those. Maybe practice in a city that's easier to navigate, but we did it a few times here and it was actually really fun. I want to talk about places where you can stay here in Lisbon. Let's talk about the accommodation. Accommodation in Lisbon is going to be really easy for you to find. There are hostels everywhere, all over the city. We are staying at the Independent Hostel. They were awesome enough to host us. They put us up in a suite, but there are actually beautiful dorm hostel rooms here in this hostel as well. They are gorgeous. This thing is so artsy and beautiful, and it's in this really old building with lots of history. There's actually a full-on beer garden and a restaurant in this hostel, so I highly suggest checking it out. And how did we end up in the Independent Hostel? We did by the sponsor of today's video, Hostelworld. Hostelworld is pretty much your #1 booking app for hostels. We celebrated their party, their 20th year anniversary party here in Lisbon with them, and we had such a blast. The team from Hostelworld is amazing. Big old love to you guys from Hostelworld. Thank you guys so much for having us. Please guys, support Hostelworld because they supported this channel in getting us over here to Lisbon and exploring Europe. So check them out down below in the description. If you're traveling, if you're going to be staying in hostels, they're pretty much the only option for you to get some good service. So check them out down in the description below. All right, let's quickly bounce off to Sintra. Sintra is an awesome day trip that you can take from Lisbon here in Portugal, and you guys are absolutely going to love it. I literally just came back from Sintra and I want to give you guys all the details, but for that, we're going to jump up to Tall in the mountainside. So let's jump off to him right now.
Hey Tall, it's daytime Tall, and we're here. Here's the deal, we took an Uber here. Usually a lot of people take trains here. The reason we did that is because we're on a bit of a time crunch. Also, there's a bunch of sites in and around Sintra to visit when you're out here. We are not going to be doing all of them. So right now we've come to the top of the Moorish Castle, or the Castelo de Moro. We're gonna hike to there. It's about a 5-minute walk. We're literally right at the ticket gate right now. In addition to that, there's a place called Palacio de Nacional, which is like the National Palace. It's this beautiful golden palace. It's a little bit chilly, so we're gonna hike over to the place right now. Hopefully we get a little bit of sun. Let's go check out this beautiful place. All right, so after you pay your €8, this is the entrance. You boys excited for this?
I'm excited.
You excited? Let's get it, Terry. All right, so we are currently hiking to the top of this Moorish Castle. This has got to be one of the coolest things I've seen in my travels thus far. I've been to a few castles around the world, but this is incredible. It is literally on the edge of a mountainside. There's these giant flags and these big old watchtowers, and you got this incredible view. Absolutely amazing. What a journey. All right, ladies and gentlefish, we have made it to the top of the viewpoint here. This is easily one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my travels ever. This is amazing. You have a whole viewpoint of the entire Moorish Castle system. You got a view of Sintra down below. I don't think you can see Lisbon from here. I could be mistaken, maybe that's Lisbon, but I could be wrong. I don't know for a fact, but it's just amazing. You have this like a straight up 360 panoramic view of everything. And on top of that, a place we're not actually going to visit, but we have the Palacio de Nacional, the National Palace, right over there. That's another amazing viewpoint up here. This is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. If you're coming to Lisbon, this is, do not miss. Like straight up, do not miss this. Alrighty, we are leaving now. This was awesome, exploring this part of Sintra, and right behind us, lots of people, because we came here around, I think like 9:50, maybe 10 a.m. And right now is noon, and there's a bunch of people flooding in. So keep in mind, if you want to come here, I've been given the tip to come here early. This park actually doesn't open until 9:30 a.m., so we came kind of perfect timing. But if you want to come any later, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of people. All right, now that we have come out of the castle, welcome to Sintra, the town itself. This is another case of a town that's been pretty much overtaken by tourism. It's literally tourists everywhere, and it's packed. So we have discovered the fact that what we did today is actually a bit of a loophole, but in an amazing way. Come here early in the morning, Uber, come here with like some sort of Uber or ride-sharing app the way that we did, and then get out of here on the train. It'll be way cheaper and less hectic because there are literally tourists everywhere, all over the place right now. It's just non-stop. So it'll probably be a lot cheaper and faster for you, and you guys can go straight to the top of the tower like we did rather than doing the regular tourist loop, and just save yourself a headache.
All right, my friends, that is the end of this video. I want to make sure that you guys subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single video. As well, if you guys want to support this channel, you can by buying some merchandise like this shirt or like this hat in the description on screen right now, or you can check out Hostelworld in the description as well and send them some love. Maybe even stay in the Independent Hostel and let them know that we sent you here in Lisbon. I'm going to hit you guys with your Portuguese word of the day, and that is going to be obrigado. Obrigado means thank you in Portuguese. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, class.